Alright guys, I just got home from Tenet, and if I wanted to be that frustrated and confused for 2.5 hours, I would have just texted my ex again. Hello friends, and welcome to my channel. My name is EJ Marino, and I am diving in to Christopher Nolan's brand new must-see blockbuster, Tenet.
Last time it was no tennis.
Oh boy, Tenet. Where do I begin with this movie? I'm going to sound so bitter and angry and mean towards it, but I am not those things at all. I by no means dislike this movie in a serious way. It's not my type of movie, I don't love it, but it's a well-made film with a lot of spectacular action and some damn good actors showing out. So by the bare bones of it, I think it is a well-made movie that is quite enjoyable. But going down to the nitty-gritty, I just think this movie lacks a heart and a soul. It's a problem I have with a lot of Christopher Nolan movies. They look cool, they feel cool, there's a big amount of spectacle to it, but I never really care about the heart and the soul of our characters, of our story, of the universe that we're building. And that is still here. There's so many times where I was just like, so why do I care about this person? What are we doing following them? Oh yeah, that's their motivation, that's their drive. And it's just kind of confusing when a director that is so good at making such a big story, I think sometimes he forgets to go down inside, under your skin, in your heart, in your soul, and speak to you. So Tenet starts off with a big badass action sequence in an opera house with John David Washington, and then we start seeing the weirdness of the world. Then we start seeing him go on the mission to figure out what Tenet is, what the inversion is, what the hell we're doing, how can we stop the World War III that is coming. So that's an overall interesting plot. That's about as many details as you get with the story. Other than what I just basically described, we are just seeing action set piece after action set piece. We'll kind of like stop every now and then to like have some character moments, build some dialogue, maybe a little bit of character development. Barely any character development, but that's those moments that I think this movie lacks. Sometimes I feel like Nolan has never had a conversation with a human that was normal. It's always just these weird dialogues that always feel kind of, I don't want to say quippy in the way like a Joss Whedon script is, but they're always just saying these one-liners that they think sound so cool, so badass, and I'm like, oh, that's funny. Like, oh, you're the protagonist. That's something John David Washington's character calls himself often. I'm like, you get it? Because protagonists are what's in a story. And oh, that's so funny. There's just a lot of those moments where I'm like, okay, cool. I do think what I like about the script is they do, since it is a weird time travel, weird like inversion is what they call it, where some people are going backwards in time, where some people are going forward in time. There's cool moments where it pays off when they say something earlier in the movie and it comes off and pays off later, or someone sees somebody dive into the water and they think it's somebody else, but it turns out to be another person. So it's those kind of moments that I do think work in the script level. And like I said, the action, the spectacle, it's all there. Like the whoever made each little moment that we went to was awesome, but it's those little moments that connect, those big spectacle moments that I think this movie faults on. Tenet features a pretty badass cast that includes John David Washington, who is the son of Denzel Washington, Robert Pattinson, our new Batman, Elizabeth Debicki, the tallest, most beautiful woman in Hollywood, Kenneth Branagh in a fun villainous role with dialogue that I can't understand. Seems to be a Nolan thing with his baddies. Oh, also like Michael Caine's in this movie, but he's only in it for like 2 seconds. How do you cast Michael Caine and not use enough of him? But anyways, so I really like this cast, and I do think they do best with the material given. I don't love their dialogue. I don't love their interactions with each other. It feels so stilted and sterile and wooden when two people are interacting with each other. Someone gives somebody a kiss on the cheek at one point. I'm like, well, that doesn't feel natural. Like, I'm Spanish. I know what a kiss on the cheek bye means. When it happened in this movie, I was like, oh, that just felt so robotic and weird. But these actors are doing something that's a little bit different. I don't love John David Washington as the center of this film, but I think it's how his character's written. I think it's his dialogue. He's not emoting enough. He's a pretty just chill. He's just kind of vibing and just walking through the movie. And I'm like, well, that's cool, but I need you to have some urgency. There is weird, timey-wimey stuff happening with our inversion, and you're just like, oh man, that's crazy. Isn't that weird? I'm like, what? Like, what? We used to call like Robert Pattinson a charisma vacuum, but I just felt like sometimes John David Washington lacked that oomph that I know it's there. I've seen BlacKkKlansman. I know this guy is talented. I know his father. I know he can give me those moments at 11. There's just something that he was just lacking here. But I do think that's kind of an overall thing. Sometimes Elizabeth Debicki's character was interesting. She would always be like, my son, my son, my son. And I'm like, can I get a scene with your son or a story that you told about your son? There's just those moments that I'm like, get me connected to these people and I would care more. All this big crust stuff is happening. Elizabeth Debicki maybe gets shot at one point. And I'm like, oh, cool. But I'm not like, oh my God, what's going to happen to her? I'm like, oh, that character I like might go away. There's just those little moments that I'm like, I want to like this movie more. Let me like this movie. And it just would not let me fall in love with it. Now, the action and the fight scenes are where this movie really shines, and if you guys know me on my channel, I like more drama or horror or things that aren't big action moments. But the action stuff in this movie was very good, and I guess that helped make up for like the weaker dialogue and the human interaction moments, because when it's like the one cool kitchen fight scene, or the first time we saw the weird inversion one where like we're going backwards and John David Washington's fighting somebody in a weird suit, or the beginning and that opera half stuff, or the weird end that felt like a war movie, like all of these action moments were so cool, so big, so badass, especially that one plane one where they crash into a building. You've seen that in the trailer. That is dope as hell. All of that is really cool, and it let me it kept me engaged in the movie when I wasn't liking the characters, when I wasn't vibing with a certain story element. I would be like, well, at least in 5 minutes I'll get a cool action sequence, and there it is, awesome. That's why at least I understood the pacing of this movie. I didn't really love the pacing because it was like breakneck. It would like, oh, and we're moving on, and we're moving on, and we're moving on. But at least by the middle of it, I was just like, at least if I'm bored now, there's gonna be something cool in a minute. And that's good and bad. This movie is a very confusing film. I wish the movie was more confusing itself. I got all the inversion stuff. Nothing really confused me, but my feelings, how the movie made me feel, that's where my confusion lies. I keep wanting Nolan to recapture the magic that he once had in Inception, the movie that I love the most from him. I think that movie is so cool when Nolan isn't the most cool director. It is just so badass. I care about the characters. Like, Leo's story in that movie, I really care about. I don't really have that same feeling in Tenet, and I just wanted to like these people more. I just wanted to like this story more. Again, there's so much that works here, but to me, the negatives just slightly outweigh the bad. I hate always looking at a movie like this, and I wish I could just be like, oh, I liked it. Oh, I didn't like it. This movie is one of those that I am enjoying talking about it because it's fun to dive into these feelings and find your emotions and see what you liked or didn't like. But a movie like this that I thought I would at least enjoy a little bit more kind of hurts to be like, but the spectacle was cool. The score, the sound, it was all interesting. Sometimes the sound mixing is not as interesting, but the score, the elements, the explosions, it was all there. It was all big and bold. So I liked it. Like, the weird Neanderthal in me was just like, shiny colors, bright lights, big sounds, I like. But me trying to think about this movie on a deeper level, that's where I start having problems. Alright guys, that was it for my review of Christopher Nolan's Tenet, the big blockbuster that's going to save the movie theaters. If you're a big Christopher Nolan fan and you're comfortable going to a movie theater in wherever you live in the world, you should do it if you feel comfortable. But if you are on the fence about it, I would say either wait till theaters are a little bit more, until we get the system out and we start figuring it out, or just wait till it's at home. I think this movie, if you have a nice TV, this could still play very well. There's still some really good moments that I think, hell, if you watch this on a cell phone, it would still work because those action moments are so cool. So this is a tough one for me to recommend. See it when you can and when you feel comfortable. That's all I'll say about it. Alright guys, that was it for my review of Tenet. What do you guys think of this review? What do you guys think of Christopher Nolan's Tenet? Let me know down in the comments below. Subscribe to my channel because I make videos like this every single week, and give me a thumbs up if you did enjoy this video. Let's talk about, oh god, let's just talk about this movie as nicely as we can down below.